Hey guys, Amy with Colorado Mountain Living. Welcome to our channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. I wanted to give you an update of how our homesteading experiments have gone over the summer since we've moved on to our property. So we're kind of two-dimensional at this point. We're just working on gardening and beekeeping, just trying to figure out what we can actually grow, trying to figure out the weather patterns. Today happens to be like the windiest day of the summer. It is quite breezy. Woo. But the sun is out, and so if you're wearing black, it actually feels pretty warm. It's probably at least like 65 degrees out. Some of the activities that we got into were beekeeping at high altitude, and I had one hive that overwintered and then added another hive this summer, and I wanted to go over some of the highlights of what I learned about beekeeping in the summer up here. And then the gardening experiments that we didn't really grow a lot of food, but we did try a few things. I want to tell you about that. And I want to touch on sort of the wildflowers, weather patterns, water situation, and even like the wildfire situation. It's been really hazy the last month or so from all of the wildfires from western Colorado, even California. A lot of the fires come over here and we get really hazy, cloudy days where you can't see the mountains. That's kind of interesting. So anyway, I want to give you kind of a rundown of the lessons that we learned on our homestead this summer. On to the bees. So what's the verdict with the bees? Turns out that this year the bees were really good at producing more bees. So I think I have very strong colonies in both. But when I checked on them a couple of weeks ago, they did not really have much in the terms of honey storage. So I wasn't able to collect any honey this year, and I'm actually feeding them pretty heavily right now so that they can get set up for winter. These top supers, the boxes on top, the topmost levels, I'm going to take off because it's full of empty comb, and I think they could survive with 2 big boxes full of honey this winter. So that's my plan, is to take off the empty comb that they're not building out anymore and just continue to feed them for the next couple of months. The bees are still bringing in quite a bit of pollen right now. There's all of your fall flowers in bloom, including goldenrod, which is one of the big ones. So still bringing in, it's a good sign, to see them having the pollen pouches on their legs. When you see most bees with pollen, there's a lot of food out there in nature still. So not dire circumstances just yet, but the bees kind of know it's the last hurrah. They know they really need to gather all they can in the next few weeks because that cold weather could be coming out. I did notice there was a huge difference in Hive 1, whereas a couple weeks ago when I checked and they had absolutely no honey stores, now they have quite a bit of nectar stored up and they just need to cap it off for food. So I think I'm going to leave all 3 boxes on for the winter. These are all mediums anyway, so that should give them enough pounds of honey to survive the winter. This one I'm going to continue to watch to see if they build out this last box of honeycomb. So it's a lot of comb, and I think they're maybe tempted to build because they're getting some feed right now, but if they don't build it out, I might take off that top box if they don't fill out the comb and start putting honey up in it, because I think it's just empty space. So that's my plan for the bees. You'd be wondering why didn't we get any honey, and is it possible to keep bees at high altitude and get honey? Well, I think the answer is yes. The reason this year I think they didn't produce honey is because they were both relatively new colonies. So next year with a strong start and we're planting more clover, I think we'll actually be in really good shape to try to get a little bit of honey next year. Maybe not pounds and pounds, but at least some for the homestead to enjoy. I have right behind the beehive a yellow jacket nest pop up, and we tried put a bowl over the top of the hole, and a lot of them were dying off. And normally I would just leave them alone, but the fact that they were exactly right behind the beehive, they were kind of a threat to stealing some of their food. And also they were right on my walking path right to the garden. Pretty good. It's getting a little bit yellow. Probably needs a little bit more water. We're supposed to get some rain today. But you're not really supposed to harvest rhubarb in the first couple of years anyway, so I'm just going to kind of leave that there. Now, some of my greens have gone to seed already and flowered, but I'm just going to leave that because the bees are actually kind of going after these flowers. This is all my arugula and mixed greens and lettuces. So I picked some of it earlier. I picked about a full grocery bag full of greens a couple weeks ago, and just finishing those up now. The kale's looking really good. So lots of heads of kale, green kale, blue kale, lacinato kale. There's a few different varieties there. So that's still going to be coming, and I think I don't need to plant any more greens at this point. I was thinking about scattering my plantings, but I definitely don't need to do that now. And then the spinach patch over here with the one arugula mixed in. The spinach bolted pretty quickly because it was pretty hot when I put them in. Summer-wise, you know, the hot summer sun here in the 80s focused right on the garden bed, I think kind of encouraged that to bolt right away. But I'm thinking of some other ideas I can do with the spinach, like some powdered greens. I might dehydrate the leaves and make some powdered greens with those. The strawberry plants are all shooting out runners and little baby plants coming up, so those are going to do really, really good next spring when they kind of get reestablished. So they're getting pretty established now. I should probably pick up this white mesh, so in case they want to see, look at all the runners coming off of this one. What in the world? Is there a strawberry coming? I thought the strawberries already passed. I'm wondering if these are ever fruiting. That's kind of cool. Keep an eye on that one. And here's the jumbo zucchini plant, still producing. There's a little guy right there. Another one over there. There's still about, I'd probably say a dozen more zucchinis coming. But that was a big surprise and very pleased. We've been eating a lot of zucchini lately. I've made pickles. I've been doing zucchini noodles and stir fries. So that's just off of one plant. So didn't really have to try too hard to make that come alive. The succulent flower garden's looking pretty good. This one went and flowered. I'm going to probably transplant a lot of these next spring because I think I'd rather have this just be a vegetable garden and not share space with strawberries. And I was just trying to put everything in here, and it's getting a little bit crowded. So I'll probably move a lot of my flowers and do a lot of that stuff around the house. And my main reason for putting flowers and drought-tolerant plants in with the vegetable garden was to get a place for those to get established. I wanted to start a collection of high elevation, drought-tolerant plants that I could start to spread around the homestead, and things that got established did really well. And I got encouraged as well with the wildflower situation, which I'll talk to you about. So some of these are cleomes. They are actually about 4 to 5 feet tall plants that the bees really love. And they just started really blooming a lot this August. And what I've noticed is that where a lot of the natural wildflowers that are on the hillside are dying out, these cleomes are really blooming, attracting the hummingbirds, attracting all the pollinators, and I think they are a nectar source because the bees are really deep in there and spending a lot of time on these flowers. And in part of the wildflower seed mix that I use, these orange-looking buttercup-like flowers, I don't know what the name of them are, but they're pretty. And then I found some new blue ones that kind of came up. So it seems like every week there's like a new variety of flowers. And look, the bees are finding everything. They're collecting all the pollen that's available right now because they know what it's on. The end of the season's upon us. So I usually take a walk down the driveway to kind of catch and see what's blooming. And I started a little notebook where I've got notes on which week which flowers are blooming, and trying to keep track of the nectar flow and the pollination and what's available for the bees throughout the summer. Anyway, it's nice to kind of keep track of things and see how the season progresses. And as I'm paying attention to all of the wildflowers, I'm also noticing all the noxious weeds, including Canada thistle. This is one of the invasive weeds in Colorado, and I had pulled out a bunch of it earlier this season, but that's not an effective treatment. You actually have to treat with herbicide to kill the root system. So I can rent a sprayer at the co-op extension to do this, and it's a non-toxic herbicide, but I definitely need to take care of these before the end of the season so they're not a problem next year. Probably our primary pest is this ground rodent that makes these dirt piles. I haven't identified it by sight yet, but they burrow holes and they chew up the root systems of trees that I've planted, including this cherry tree. The leaves are all dead on it. And then I think I showed you in a couple of videos ago the berry tree that I had that had the roots completely chewed up. But holes are all over the side of the hill, and they make a big mess. Interestingly, though, they haven't affected the garden. The other big pest are the moose. Now, look at how big this bull moose is. Pretty impressive. They seem to do a pretty good job pruning the aspen trees. They don't touch the garden. They don't touch the shrubs. They really are not in our way at all. They just are an annoyance to the dog, and they seem to really like the small little aspen branches, and we have plenty of those to spare. So they kind of help us keep the trees pruned. They don't really do much other damage to the homestead, but they are kind of a nuisance when the dog is around because he likes to bark at them and run up to them, so that's not cool. But it's kind of fun to watch, something you can definitely enjoy. One time, one of the big bull moose had a smaller moose with it, and it came really close to the electrified beehive fence, and it kind of ran off, so that's definitely, a deterrent for large animals getting too close to the hives. Not that they've been a threat to the bees at all, but sort of our big pests. Weather-wise, we really can't complain this summer. We were able to get a lot done on the house, and we still got adequate rain for a lot of our shrubs that we had planted earlier this spring. On the side of the driveway, we have a natural spring, and it's still going. Last summer, I think it had dried up by this time of the year. And now, it provides a place for me to collect water to water the garden, and it also provides a source of water for the bees, which is really important. I think I'm zooming in on some yellow jackets, however, but usually my bees are right over in these shallow rocks, and that's a really good water source for them. Also for the dog when he gets thirsty, but we had dug out a little portion of the spring earlier in the year so we could collect water in a little deeper portion right here, so I could kind of get a bucket in there and collect water. But weather-wise, we've gotten adequate rain. We, had to do very little watering of the garden, and I think this will be great for next year if we want to take this water and divert it towards the garden. We could definitely do that. Temperature-wise, we've been in the low to mid-70s most of the summer. The nights are chilly, but it warms up really quickly in the morning with the sun. So that's, we really can't complain about the summer. The weather's actually been pretty perfect as far as one could expect for Colorado, so we can't really complain about that. The only disappointment weather-wise this summer has been all of the wildfires and the haze. You can't really see all of the beauty of the mountains. It doesn't really put a damper on homesteading or gardening or anything else like that, but sometimes it smells smoky, and I wonder if we're getting any health effects from all that smoke. But look at that house, though. So hopefully you guys found a lot of that interesting. I know I've been fascinated just this whole learning process of readjusting to a different environment, a different climate, and there's still a lot more to learn. So I'm going to continue to learn from my neighbors, and I'm going to continue to ask questions, take classes, learn more about my natural environment, and try to really incorporate some more permaculture principles of incorporating environments, human environments, plant environments, animal environments, to really find a good harmonious balance and success for everybody. I'd love to be able to grow more food and support more ecosystems and try not to get in the way of the moose too much, but also help the bees thrive. I don't know, there's just a lot of projects I have in mind. I'd love to do more gardening, expand with a greenhouse. I think that would be really fun. Maybe more indoor pots now that we'll have more indoor space and windows. I could do more throughout the winter as well. Maybe some cold frame gardening. Anyway, there's a lot of ideas I've got going on, but I'll keep you up to date with the progress. And thanks for joining, guys. Next time, I think I'm going to give you an update on the completion of the house with the roof and the windows, and we'll see you next time.